Welcome to Getting Defensive Weekend Primer, presented by Gridiron Ratings. I'm your host, JJ Wenner, and welcome to part ocho of our free agency frenzy. That's right. Tonight we talk about the top signings on the defensive side of the ball and why they matter to your teams. With me tonight is my friend, Gridiron Ratings senior IDP analyst. You can find him on Twitter at the IDP Tipster, Gary Van Dyke. How you doing, my friend?
I am doing really well. How about you, JJ? I'm ready to get this done.
Never better. Never better. And especially because also with us tonight is the author of the Key and Diagnose series for Gridiron Ratings, our favorite IDP writer. You can find him on Twitter at BJack83. Brandon Jackson. How you doing, Mr. Jackson?
Doing great, JJ. We've been busy at work completing the rankings on our website and doing our IDP initiative draft. I'm excited about those two things, and also about writing more articles with the Key and Diagnose. Man, I got a lot of interesting players in mind that's going to really spur the interest of IDP fantasy football fans.
Who's up next for you?
Believe it's Divine Diablo.
Oh, Raiders.
Yeah, Raiders. He's like a converted safety. He's playing, I believe, linebacker right now. He's in the running for
very interesting. Well, yeah. I need a linebacker in our draft, so maybe I'll take a peek at Divine Diablo. But
I think he's still marked as safety in MFL in our league.
That's a cheat code.
I know where he's at.
All right. Well, before we jump into tonight's topic, make sure you like and subscribe below to get all of our most recent content. Remember, your path to the title starts with Gridiron Ratings. Now, gentlemen, let's check on the news. Brandon, Ian Rappaport is rapporting that Tyrann Mathieu is visiting with the Eagles, and they are the prime landing spot for the veteran playmaker. Do you think this would be the ideal landing spot for the Honey Badger?
I think it could be a very good landing spot. The Eagles, they've been looking for a safety to come in and, lead their defense. Tyrann Mathieu, he's been very productive throughout his whole career. I think signing him, will solidify their defense. There's a lot of teams that have been looking for calling the Honey Badger, the Saints, who we'll talk about shortly. They had him in for a visit. I guess the numbers didn't work. But I would like that signing. He'd be a solid addition to their secondary.
He would make some of the Eagles fans I know very happy by signing. Gary, Kareem Jackson re-signed with the Denver Broncos and is going to be returning to their defensive backfield. Now, do we see him as still having an impact?
I mean, it's kind of like slowly but surely he's getting older. So the production's not like it was. I would suspect that we see about what he did last year. The disappointing part is I kind of have my eye on that Stern. I think he's a second-year kid, but it is what it is. I doubt if Jackson is going to get outplayed. They signed him to start, so he's a solid veteran, knows his job.
Well, great. I had my eyes on him too. That just goes show you, great minds.
There you go. There you go.
Take anything past you guys. I know that playing, drafting in IDP initiative, I'm getting sniped on some players, man.
Yeah,
very savvy.
Yeah, it's tough in there, man. I mean, you got Nate from the IDP guys, founder owner. Then you got Johnny the Greek from there. We got Craig. We have all of us here. I mean, I think there's only out of the 16 teams, I think there's only like maybe 3 that aren't affiliated with IDP at some site. I think, if I remember right.
Information that would have been useful before I said yes.
Yes, right. When it comes to Stern, though, I mean, he's not fell completely off. You said this was 1 year for Jackson?
Yeah, and Kareem Jackson's also 31, 32?
Yeah.
He's old.
Yeah, he's out there doing his job. He's just not. You know, if
Listen, he's a wise veteran. He has seen everything.
Right.
He has seen every offense.
right.
He can help get them in the right position and
Yep.
coach up the young guys.
Yep, exactly.
All right. Well, gentlemen, that's about it. There is some dirty O stuff, but we're not getting into that tonight, at least not yet.
No,
So let's jump into the rest of the
keep that on the
notable.
ride or dynasty. That's what that's for.
Listen,
is for you to talk dirty O
only
on the ride or
dynasty.
dynasty.
I only talk about dynasty offensive player there.
Right.
Sometimes
sure
we talk
you
about
guys
redraft here.
Make sure you guys are checking out the Rider Dynasty too. Great stuff. Great stuff. It was like the one right before our drafting, especially. I watched the one last week, and it was like perfect timing on a couple of things for me. So didn't necessarily get me ahead in the draft because of how things fell, but I've enjoyed that draft, and it's been interesting. It's only the second year and the first time the formats kind of ran through with the keeper part of it. So it's been interesting. It's been really interesting.
You know,
All
it
right.
is. I will say, Gary, just before we get into the topic, you're right. It doesn't feel like dynasty or fantasy season until you start that first draft, right? You're
Right,
like working
right.
off the rust,
Right.
You know, the wheel,
Right.
the gears
Yep.
start turning,
Yep.
but like that blood's starting to flow again, man, and it
Right.
feels good. I am so excited now for fantasy season. So let's jump into the latest off-season signings on the IDP side. First up, two separate safety signings by the Saints, Justin Evans and Daniel Sorensen. Now, Justin Evans had been out of football for the past 3 years after suffering a series of injuries while playing for the Bucs. Daniel Sorensen has been playing football, not well, but he has been running the defense for the Chiefs for the past few years. Now, Brandon, neither is listed as a starter for the Saints, but are they going to provide anything more than bench depth this year?
I think they're going to be bench players. I don't know. Maybe Sorensen might get a shot because Marcus May, he was brought in to replace Marcus Williams at free safety. You know, Daniel Sorensen, he started like the past few seasons with the Chiefs. I mean, he's a solid veteran. He's more of a run defender as a safety as opposed to a coverage safety. He struggles in coverage. But I can see him possibly given a chance to start depending on what happens with the draft or this new guy they signed, Justin Evans, who's been out with Achilles injury. I think he's more of like a reclamation project. You know, I guess they're trying to hit the lottery. He was pretty good his first couple years before the injury. I watched some tape on him. The guy looks really, really good. He's a playmaking safety, makes interceptions, and a very good tackler. So, I mean, unless he surprises, then I mean, I really don't see him starting. You know, he's 27 years old. But, you know, it's worth a shot. And plus they talked about maybe moving, was it P.J. Williams or Chauncey Gardner-Johnson? But I don't think they're going to move Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. He's their slot corner. He's very good at what he does. He's one of the best slot corners in the league. So I think they're going to just keep him there and just trying to find an option, whether it be someone else on free agency or the roll with Sorensen and draft somebody. Until
Gary, where are you at with Sorensen and Evans?
Oh, I'm just going to point out to everybody, this is exactly why I brought Brandon over to the dark side, because it's IDP. He knows what he's talking about. Realistically, when it comes to Justin Evans, you know, when he played for Tampa Bay, he came out the same year as May. He came out I believe it was May and Marcus Williams. It was a nice safety class. And Evans was really good down there, but he had some Achilles or foot problems, I think, and it really, they eventually just released him. But coming in, I think we're definitely looking at Sorensen. I think Sorensen's going to get that starting strong safety, even though it's a cheap contract for him. That's what they needed to replace Jenkins in that defense, realistically. And I'm thinking that the Saints are in trouble with cap. So if I remember right, so this is just a good, solid veteran. Probably told Sorensen, "You're going to start," and he was ready to jump on that. Plus, he's got special teams prowess. But Marcus May, I couldn't find anything. I was trying to look it up to see where he was in his recovery. I actually, about 20 minutes before I got on here, I was going to reach out to you to maybe knock on some doors. You happen to know a few injury guys, I guess. So I was going to see if you could find out something that I couldn't see. But either way, I'd missed that. I don't think Justin Evans comes into play unless Marcus May is not ready. Justin Evans I haven't, the details of his contract weren't there yet when I looked. It's probably just like a veteran minimum.
Absolutely.
They're probably just bringing him in, letting him just get his feet back underneath him and stuff. It could lead to an audition for another, job next year or something. He could come into play. Marcus May sometimes is kind of injury guy. So in and out. I'm not excited. The only position that I'm going to be excited for amongst this whole situation with these free agents, which Marcus May was too, is I'm interested in Sorensen actually a little bit for that strong safety position. But as far as the free safety and that Dennis Allen defense, there's a reason that Marcus Williams, it was a big deal about him going to the Ravens and him being so good. But for IDP purposes, he wasn't. It's because he's a deep free safety on that. He stayed deep. So whoever plays that position technically should be coming in there and playing it the same way. Justin Evans basically did the same thing down Tampa Bay those 2 years before he got hurt. That's why he never really got on everybody's radar fully, is because he was playing that deep. I think Tampa too, deep free safety, if I remember right. But either way, so I'm not excited for whoever plays that free safety. I do agree that Gardner, he's not in. I think there's some websites out there that are depth charts that has him marked as a strong safety. He's not. He's the slot guy. So Sorensen, I'm all in for. I'm sorry, but I'm not in on May. Not if he's playing free safety. I'd rather take my upside somewhere else to think that he's just going to come in and turn the position around when it's that particular free safety position in that scheme.
Everything is so scheme dependent. Damien Wilson signed a 2-year, $6.9 million contract with the Carolina Panthers. Now, although he was ranked pretty poorly by PFF, he did log over 100 combined tackles last year. Gary, is this a production by default signing? Like, can we expect something out of Wilson this year?
We got to I didn't think about that when we brought this list up, but, you got to kind of throw Corey Littleton side by side in this situation too. Right now, you're probably looking at Shaq Thompson on his weak side, and then you're looking at the strong side or middle. Last year, Riddick played the strong side, and he did a lot of rushing from that position. And I'm really curious if maybe Damien Wilson might see some strong side linebacker, and maybe they get him rushing. If they actually end up using both him and Littleton, or if it comes down to it, Wilson can stop the run. He's good at shed blocks and stopping the run, but he's really poor in coverage. And then it's just the opposite with Littleton. Littleton can't beat himself out of a wet paper sack anymore to get a tackle, but he's better in coverage. So they're probably two guys that, as far as I can tell right now, at least the information we have right now, I'm going to probably take the swing on Wilson because Corey Littleton's fell so far to begin with, and see what happens, but not as a starter, and hopefully not even as my first backup in most deeper formats.
Brandon, are you on board with Gary?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything that Gary said, looking at the situation. Corey Littleton has fell off so bad since he left the Rams in 2019. Just look at him last year. He was completely phased out of the defense towards the end of the season, had like 0 snaps in week 17 and 18. Damien Wilson, he started every game with Jacksonville Jaguars next to Miles Jack. Like you said, he had a career year, over 106 tackles. Right now, he's the better player.
Wasn't Wilson the reason they could let Scobert go? Was that how that went?
Right. He took over for Joe Scobert.
I couldn't remember for sure.
But yeah, I'm right on board with you, Gary. I'm projecting Shaq Thompson and Damien Wilson will be the starters because I mean Corey Littleton, he's just been a massive disappointment. He struggled so bad.
And Carter did so poorly at production last year at that position. If you guys never heard of Jermaine Carter, you're probably not going to hear of him again, other than the fact that he just signed with Kansas City, I think, and might be just lost somewhere. But either way, it's a little bit worrisome. I mean, traditionally that position should produce. Carter did not produce. So
he was given every opportunity to step into that role. Yep.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, I don't know what happened. There was some kind of a freak things. The same thing happened with the Denver Broncos. Josie Jewell finally started producing at the position at the beginning of the season, got hurt, and Stannard come in. And I guess Carter's cousin or something, because neither one of them, they both ran from the production like it was, a scary thing. But either way, that's just kind of unusual because the position itself should offer some default production, and it wasn't any. So Wilson, if he comes in as a 2-down thumper, he might offer a little bit in some deeper formats. Littleton could too, if he's in the nickel package, if he's going to be a nickel backer somehow in that scheme. You now have Xavier Woods that's been brought in to play free safety, and apparently Chin won't be spending as much time deep on the field. So what are they going to do there? Or, have they decided that maybe they should put him back into that hybrid linebacker role? I mean, we're not hearing anything about that right now, folks, so don't get me wrong. But, I mean, they have some personnel that they can play with as well. I guess I'm trying to get back to. They like Justin Burris. They re-signed Justin Burris, which most people don't know it, but he was a starting strong safety for on paper last year. For him, and he just never recorded anything. Him and Carter, I guess, I don't know. I don't get how that happens. But either way, I don't think that either one of them are worth a real hard look in some standard leagues. So I think I could think of a lot of younger flyers that I might rather take a round with than I would to reach for these guys.
Which makes sense. At this point of free agency, you're not seeing the young guys going. This is more the best, right? The best of the rest.
Right.
Next up, Jayon Brown signed a 1-year, $1.25 million contract with the Raiders. Now, Brandon, Brown seems to have been bitten by the injury bug the past 2 years, missing 6 games or more each season. Can we count on him to deliver in the desert?
I don't believe so. I believe the Raiders, they signed him because they needed some depth. They have Denzel Perryman, who was their best linebacker last season. We're projecting him to start again. They're just looking for that second linebacker. So I mean, he's going to compete with Divine Diablo, who we briefly discussed. I'm very excited about Divine Diablo. He's a converted safety from college, a 3rd-round pick. He actually took the job away from Corey Littleton towards the end of the season. So I'm excited about Diablo. He's going to compete with Jayon Brown. He's better in coverage. He's like the perfect complement to Denzel Perryman, who's more of a run stopper. Perryman, he struggles in pass coverage. So they put like a Diablo next to him. That's going to help out their defense in pass coverage. So, I mean, I'm projecting it's going to be Denzel Perryman, Diablo, Jayon Brown. He's going to have to fight for that starting job in camp. It's like kind of like a make or break year for him because he struggled so bad in Tennessee. They phased him out of the defense. David Long, who you just drafted in the IDP initiative league, I had my eyes on him. I wanted him. He was their best linebacker. And then they picked up, Zach Cunningham. So that's just going to show you, Tennessee, the Titans, they were very upset with the production coming from the linebacker spot. Mm-hmm. So if me, I'm shooting for the upside with Divine Diablo. I'm not really going to look to adding Jayon Brown.
What do you think, Gary? Do you think we can find a second act in the Sin City for Jayon Brown?
I think in a perfect world, the Perriman won't be on the field every down. I know he's a dull baby when it comes to production. Last year, he walked in there, he produced. He's just, I get it, but I think for the team's best efforts and that kind of defense that they're running, I think that they would their best bet would have either Diablo and Brown in there taking care of covering the seam, or run a lot of nickel. I run a lot of nickel without Perriman. Is there room for three? So, I mean, technically we got a weak side, we got a middle, and then we got a strong side linebacker, which, KJ Wright played a lot of. I have seen some projections that's got Perriman moved over to that strong side linebacker, depth charts. Now, depth charts are dime a dozen right now. And names are getting thrown around, so don't take anything to heart. I personally, I'm the same way. I'm going to go with any upside, especially in dynasty leagues, with the Diablo pick. I really don't trust the other two enough to put any real solid investment into them. I don't think. I wouldn't be shocked if Brown got himself together and could stay healthy, that he could come on and make another impact. But the problem is can he stay healthy after he makes that impact and you start depending on it? So there's a little, me, I have risk concerns about a lot of things. So, but that usually gets me through.
Well,
Sometimes.
let's speaking of Jayon Brown, let's continue with oft injured former Titans. Rashaan Evans signed a 1-year contract with the Atlanta Falcons. Now he leaves Nashville, goes to Atlanta. Gary, if healthy, can he compete with Jones for a starting job?
I don't think he's going to have to compete with Jones. Unfortunately, I selected Walker in our IDP incentive, and the very next day, Evans gets signed. And the first thing I did was go look, and lo and behold, I believe he's got some kind of connection with the DC. There's Tennessee connection there. So, he's at least a 2-down thumper, and they're switching to the 3-4. So they're going to use these two inside linebackers. One of them's got to be a run stopper, and one of them's going to be a coverage guy. And we got Deion Jones. You're not going to beat his coverage with Walker. Maybe they end up trading Jones or something. I know there's an outrageous contract on him, but so far Atlanta has not done much about anything about these guys' contracts. So it's really hard to say. But the guy that's taking the hit is probably Walker. I could see him coming down as a nickel backer now. With Evans in there for the first 2 downs, I hate it too. Walker was set up. It kind of makes sense when you think about it, though, because Deion Jones is not a run stopper. He is not a run stopper. He is a coverage guy. Now, sure, he's pretty tough, so he can hang in there and make some stops up there in the box, but he is not that type of player. Evans is. So, it only makes sense, and of course, that kind of just pops Walker down to about half the snaps that he might have seen if they hadn't signed Evans.
Now, Brandon, are you on the same page with Rashaan Evans as Gary?
Well, I'm still high on Michael Walker. I'm not as pessimistic as Gary. I like Gary. I like Michael Walker from the limited snaps that he's played. I watched some tape on him. He's very athletic. But Gary, you are right that both Walker and Deion Jones, they're more profiled as like coverage linebackers. Mm-hmm. So Rashaan Evans, he's more of a run stopper. So I guess ideally he would match he'd be a better fit with Deion Jones. You have a run stopper in there, and Deion Jones can do his coverage thing. But Michael Walker, I like him. He's a young and ascending player. He's a playmaker. I think the coaching staff, they realize that he's going to come in, he's going to compete for that starting job with Michael Walker. And I just feel like Michael Walker, he's a more high upside player, and talent is going to prevail. He's going to be starting week 1 with Deion Jones. I'm very excited about Michael Walker.
If he continues his development, it's not like I'm going to go drop Walker off my IDP incentive roster now. If he takes that next step which it already looks like he had to begin with. So as long as he's developed, for whatever reason, we might find out this Evans thing is nothing but a backup deal, bringing in a guy that knows the system, blah, blah, blah. We've heard it a million times before. That would be the greatest case scenario. And I believe Walker deserves that right. If he could show that he can come in and run the defense, the same thing that tackling defense dude, that's what he does usually. He's calling and orchestrating the defense in front of him. So if Walker can show that kind of, prowess and take on that new scheme, I certainly believe his talent and skill set's better than Evans at this point. Definitely.
Who wore the green dot last year for the Falcons?
Oh, Jones.
Jones, right?
Jones. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Deion Jones when he's there, which is all the time. We just don't see it in the box score like we used to. He's gotten wore out. The guy was kind of miscast, put in the middle there when he come out. I mean, he was actually. I remember when Deion Jones, because he was one of the guys I wrote about, said he would break out his first year. I really liked him, even being a rookie, which usually has to do more with his landing spot. But when you profiled the guy, but he wasn't your typical throw him in the middle of. A typical guy in the same defense back when he was drafted would have been Bobby Wagner. And you put Bobby Wagner and Deion Jones side by side, they're not the same linebacker. You got a coverage linebacker and you've got a universal run stopping linebacker with Bobby Wagner. So it's quite a bit of a difference. But
so it almost makes sense then for them to bring in a run stopper to free up Deion Jones and let him do what he does best.
I would say so. I mean, it makes sense now. At first, it was exciting. And if they would have stayed in the old 4-3 for whatever reason, if they, or had been in this 3-4, that I could see that the Jones and Walker thing would work out a little bit better. And I've had to get that out of my mind a little bit over the last few days since this has all happened with Evans signing. And yeah, it's making me nervous. But yeah, again, maybe it's a veteran sign. If Walker can demonstrate that he's the dude, then I'm sure they'll give him a chance. You want to have your best guys out there.
Yeah, I guess it's a wait and see approach, Gary. Yeah. We'll see how it works out in training camp.
Yeah. Did they sign Evans for a year?
Yeah.
1 year.
Yeah. That's not come in and take over for us. You at least get a 2-year out of that, so it makes you feel warm and fuzzy, right?
Plus, they needed depth. They needed depth. They didn't have much behind Walker and Deion Jones. That's why I'm still excited about Michael Walker. I think
for my sake, I hope I'm completely wrong and Walker comes in and wipes the floor with the job, because I could stand a little boost there.
Brandon, you do have a point. Even just looking at their roster, like their defensive roster seems a little bit thin, right? Like there's not a lot of depth, especially that defensive line.
No.
Right. And I don't know where they're going to fill those positions with, because they do not have cap space.
I guess my next question is, what would you give me in trade for Walker? We'll talk later.
I'll negotiate this between the two of you right now.
He's not for sale. He'd have to have something pretty damn solid for me to.
Oh my God, that you're the worst type of trader.
I know.
Worst type of
I don't know. Maybe he can wow me.
Well, yeah,
I don't think this guy's going to start. I don't think he has a chance. I'm going to need at least 2 first. Terrible. You're terrible, Gary.
What?
Yeah.
All right. Falcons need an edge rusher, though. They need an edge rusher. I think they're going to use that.
Terribly.
On an edge rusher.
Terribly. Whoever's in there is going to be productive. They're going to be busy. They're going to be absorbing a lot of production there. So. They're far.
So, Brandon, you think they go edge rusher with that first pick?
Yes. The team has been pretty adamant that edge rusher is their main priority.
Well, but I thought it would be offensive line
or quarterback.
Yeah.
Okay,
but I will say, we talked about this last night on the pod.
Yeah.
Chris Robin made a great point. When rebuilding, right? You don't start with the quarterback. The quarterback and the running back are the last two pieces you should really add. Build everything else and then get that quarterback on his rookie contract. It's probably usually the best strategy to go.
Set him up right.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think this QB class is that great either.
No.
I think it's
Probably makes sense.
I keep on hearing about a kid from Liberty or something. I'm like, are you kidding me? That's
Malik Willis.
Well,
Probably be the QB1 drafted, but we'll see what ends up happening with him. But we're not talking about Dirty Oak. We are talking about old, dirty defensive players like Jabrill Peppers. Signed a 1-year, $2 million contract with the New England Patriots. Now, in my opinion, it's another brilliant signing. Look for Peppers. If I'm looking into the future, he's going to play well enough to earn a free agent contract with another team next year, giving the Pats a compensatory pick, which they do beautifully. Brandon, do you see Peppers posting enough points to earn a starting slot on IDP rosters this year?
Yeah, I'm very intrigued by this signing because the Patriots, they're pretty famous for using those three safety looks and offering very good fantasy production from the safeties. Like last year, it was Kyle Duggar. They had McCourty. It was somebody else too. I can't come to mind, but they used Duggar like at the line of scrimmage, and that's the role that Peppers has played. I know he played that last year with the Giants. They used him like in the slot, covering tight ends and slot receivers and blitzing them off the edge. I think they might plan to use him in a similar way to Patriots. So if he gets that role, that big nickel role, where he's used on the line of scrimmage and he's gobbling up tackles and blitzing and everything, he can be very productive IDP asset. So that's interesting that you said about them, kind of revitalizing his career and getting like a compensatory pick for him once he signs with somebody else. Peppers, he's very talented, but he's more like a box safety. So I'm not sure what that does to Duggar. He played in the box last year. But,
well, I'm not asking this for any personal reason, Gary, but if somebody happens to have Kyle Duggar on their roster, should they be worried right now with the Peppers signing?
No, not at all. No, whatsoever. I'm sorry you went first, Brandon. I'm sorry you went first, but I've been telling people for a few years now, just avoid Jabrill Peppers and just stay away from them. And this is the end of the road for me. I mean, here's how I look at this signing and I look at this defense. Knowing how Bill Belichick loves Adrian Phillips, loves Duggar. They re-signed McCourty, which you couldn't pry him. I think we made a joke about trying to pry him out of New England. I don't care how old he is, but he's still on there. Here's how I look at this. I don't think Jabrill Peppers had much of an opportunity in too many places. He probably didn't have a lot of doors being knocked on. So this came up. The Patriots need a punt returner too. I think we're looking at a depth piece there that could probably step in some way and play in those three main safety positions because they have Adrian Phillips that almost plays. They got a real weird thing with three safeties. They have for years. They were almost as trendsetters back in the day when it come to running with so many defensive backs because they've been doing this safety thing for a long time. Anyhow, I don't think it hurts Duggar at all. Phillips. Now, I think Phillips is in his 1-year contract or something, the last year of his contract. I do think did they give Peppers 2 years or one?
One.
Just one. Wow. It might be an audition if they decide to go, which I'm pretty sure Adrian Phillips is a little bit older than Peppers. Maybe, there's some kind of audition there. But I don't think he's able or capable or talented enough to come up there and come in there and upset anything that the Bill Belichick, because it's not broke. It's not been broke for a couple of years now since you got Adrian Phillips and Duggar came in the league. It's not broke. So why are you going to bring in something like that? I think it's a depth signing, and I think you're going to see him playing special teams this year and maybe revamping his image as a player on the field if he gets his opportunity. I've never been impressed, and I'm nervous, and he's one of my avoid list. Period.
So what about? Do you think he threatens McCourty? Because McCourty, he's up there in age. He's like 30.
Two different types of McCourty is deep free safety in that scheme. That's why McCourty has never been a huge contributor to IDP production. You know, he's usually been at best a DB2 for years. That's because he's last line of defense. He's running the show from back there in that secondary. And then, you know, I don't think he can outplay Phillips. I think Adrian Phillips has just proven himself to Bill Belichick that he's the guy. That's really why would you replace Adrian Phillips? You know, he's done nothing wrong. So it's like the rest of it looks like why fix it if it's not broke? I mean, Duger had a hell of a year last year. So I'm not quite sure why anybody would assume that Jabrill Peppers is coming in and just stepping. No, not getting defensive with their brand. And I'm just saying.
Yeah, because
Peppers already had it hit, though. He already had it hit. He could have signed in and been the only safety with any experience on this team, and I'd probably pick the guy that was like the ball boy. Like, but they're talking about him too, you know. But I'm just not a Peppers fan, and I don't see it happening or changing up here in New England.
Yeah, I hear you, Gary. Because the Giants, they did reduce his role last season, so I think you're correct. You're correct in your analysis. He only played like 50% of the snaps when he was healthy before he went out with the ACL injury.
Yeah, he's not all that good in coverage. It's funny when you usually see him making a play on the field, like in highlights of the game or something. It's because he's allowed the pass and made a hell of a tackle. Kept him going in the end zone or something like that. He's never been a real good coverage guy. And he's been, from the time that he joined the Giants in that trade for OBJ, he's pretty well just been productive by default. Now he has graded out. I think he had a good grade a year, a decent grade another year. But, I mean, overall, so could have a lot of other average guys that if they were in that position would have had that kind of production. I think Xavier.
It's not like they had a lot of weapons in front of him.
No, right, exactly. And they always struggle up until the Blake Martinez signing. They've struggled to get any inside linebackers, and then Martinez was hurt last year.
Yep.
So the McKinney draft, as soon as they drafted him, I was telling everybody, don't just stay away from Peppers now. Now he did manage because McKinney got hurt. So Peppers held on to his job that year, and then we seen it phased out last year, which is McKinney's second year. So, anyways, I got McKinney. He was one of my keepers, not Peppers.
Very nice.
Yeah, he's solid, especially with Logan Ryan gone. I guess we're going to talk about him shortly. McKinney's going to play strong safety, or is he going to stay in free safety? I think I was hearing rumors maybe strong safety.
Okay, so you're popping this up on me. I'm assuming that he's going to be playing up in the box in that area. Now they do use, this recent organization or this recent coaching staff. They do use three safeties a lot. Okay, and they're in nickel a lot. So, but I imagine they're keeping McKinney. I don't know how they would ever put McKinney deep in that, on that free safety position. Now, it's like watching Logan Ryan, which we're going to be talking about anyways. The way that he's played that supposed free safety position, I think it gets mixed up. I think how they play them, they don't have a true free safety. I mean, the way that Logan Ryan played the position, I don't think is quite the same as what we was looking at or talking about with Marcus Williams or Justin Evans in a deep Dennis Allen type safety. So, but no, I can't see them not taking McKinney up there. I mean, he's an all around. You put another 10, 15 pounds on the guy, he's playing linebacker. He's right there. He's that type of versatile player. I think it's a complete waste if they would even think about putting him just as that last line of defense. So I think he's going to be in how about if I answer it, the major safety role. He's going to be in one of those, the Logan Ryan or the strong safety role.
Now, the Giants only have one other safety that I see on their roster right now,
right.
Julian Love.
Yeah. And he's a true free safety. He can't. He's a little.
He's a
dude.
converted
like
corner, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's like 5'7", 120 pounds or something, right? So
how are they going into the season with 2 safeties on the roster? Like they're going to have to sign some more people, right?
No. Yeah, people don't go out and think you're going to be sneaky and get a hold of Love. Okay, don't do that because they're going to have to do something. They're going to have to bring in some people. They're going to draft. Who knows? I'm not
Unless
sure
he
what they're
still
drafted.
has some cornerback designation somewhere in a league.
No.
But
if that's I didn't even look at their depth chart at that for that purpose. That's funny. They might have somebody in their contract, right? Somebody.
I mean, I'm on our lads. Now I know our lads generally has all the recent signings,
right?
Not necessarily in the right order, but they only show 2 safeties: Julian Love and Xavier McKinney. Everybody else is a cornerback.
So, well, McKinney's going to be busy.
Busy. Make sure he's on your roster now. Speaking of old Patriots, we were talking a little bit about McCourty before. Now we're going to Logan Ryan. Goes where all old Patriots go to die. Tampa Bay. 1 year, $1.1 million. Now, we shouldn't count on Logan in pass coverage. PFF graded him, I believe it was 80th out of 93 eligible safeties. But is his run support going to be enough to earn him snaps in Tampa, Gary?
This is totally my aspect. My call on Logan Ryan is he's had the luxury since he was with Tennessee, then he went to the Giants. I think he's had that luxury in this time span to just be productive by default, and not in a poor way. I'm not saying the guy's not talented, but I think it's been more of the roles that he's had on both of these defenses has really stood out. Some guys get lucky, some step in a puddle and your foot comes out dry, or new shoe, whatever. But either way, I just I don't like him in Tampa Bay because he's basically walking into the same role that Jordan Whitehead played. Now, I love Jordan Whitehead. I love him up here in New York. And I think that Jordan's good enough and he's probably going to end up the starting strong safety. On paper right now, that's how it looks, which I just released a article. A lot of you owners may know Whitehead. You may have him on your radar. You may not, but go check that out if you would. But when it really comes down to it, Logan's going to, at best, come in there and start a free safety and probably not produce quite, I don't think, because he won't be put in quite the same situations. I don't think he'll be able to match what Whitehead did for the last 2 years, which is just barely mid DB2 in deep formats, DB3 in standard leagues probably. I just don't think he's going to go in there and do, like I said, folks, there's a scheme, there's a position, there's a role. And this whole thing is finally getting to a point where Logan Ryan's role, if he's the free safety, is not going to produce. And we got Edwards in there too. Edwards is not a good free safety. But he could be interesting as a strong safety. So I don't think he's not going to start over Logan.
Now, Brandon, how does the signing of Keanu Neal change all of this?
Keanu Neal,
just signed in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm not sure. I guess he's going to be a depth option because he struggled as a safety in Atlanta, and he was moved to linebacker in Dallas. That didn't work out. And Tampa Bay, they have a collection of safeties now with Winfield, Edwards, Logan Ryan, and you add Neal to the mix. I think Winfield and Ryan and Edwards are probably going to be their main 3 safeties.
Yeah, Edwards had a good season last year. Just when he got the chance to play, he was mainly the third safety or whatever. But there was a couple of games you get a little bit more playing time. He made some nice interceptions. I think he made some nice plays in the playoffs too, if I remember right. Or it was like the last part of the season. Okay, so when it comes to Neal, it's probably just another good veteran, solid signing. Maybe maybe you could use him as a linebacker if you really needed him to. You know, he does have that experience now, but are you going to do that? White would have to go down. You would have to be down in some depth chart stuff there.
They also have Levante David. I mean, they don't need linebacker help.
Neal is not a free safety. Neal is not going to upset Winfield. It's not happening. So at best, Neal being a strong safety that's not as good at coverage as what he once was. He's at best knocking Edwards off, and we don't see any reason. Why are you going to knock Edwards off? Because Edwards had a good season last year. He did his job. So that's kind of how it boils down to for me. What do you think, Brandon?
Yeah, exactly. Edwards, he's very versatile player. He actually filled in as slot cornerback for was it Marcus Bunting?
The Sean Murphy Bunting.
Sean Murphy Bunting. He played quite a bit of slot corner last year, and in the playoff game against the Eagles, he filled in for him as well. So that's why I was thinking maybe Logan Ryan might has a good shot of winning that starting job because he's been pretty solid. He's a pretty solid safety, especially against the run. So that's what I was thinking, but Edwards might be the better coverage safety. So it's up in the air. They're gonna compete in training camp. Ryan,
realistically, if they wouldn't assign Ryan a name and they wouldn't have even threw Neal in here at the end, we would have had no problem. I would have had no problem going into the year thinking that Edwards is starting free safety and Winfield's a starting strong safety. So we might find out that might be the whole thing in the end, and it's between Neal and Logan Ryan as backups. I don't think neither one of them got paid like they're, they got paid to get a chance as veterans to come on and get a shot at a ring again before that boat sails. And if I was them, I'd sail it. I'd hook on there or the Rams. There's a couple teams. Yeah, sure. I'd play it to try to get that ring before your career is over. So yeah, you're right. Things are totally, the only thing we know that's written in stone right now, and the only one we need to really worry about to begin with is that producing strong safety, and that's Winfield. Beyond that, the free safety is not going to offer you a lot. I mean, Jordan Whitehead, I looked it up when I wrote the article. Overall, in a balanced format, he ended up the 36th overall defensive back in overall production. It depends on how deep your format is. That's into second, third tier. It depends what your tiers are, like I said, on your format. So in a lot of standard leagues, that's not really handy. That's bye week and injury replacement type level stuff. It's not like even depth players you really want to target. So yeah, just Winfield and just look at everybody else as a possible fill in down the road depth piece.
All right. Well, gentlemen, it is time for tags where we let everyone know where they can find us and any final thoughts. Gary.
I'm not going to screw this one up, I don't think. Hey, follow me on Twitter at the IDP Tipster, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions in a DM. I try to do my best at getting back to the questions that I do get as soon as possible. As Brandon mentioned earlier, we've been working hard on our IDP rankings, and mine are up on the site. I think Brandon's and James, and I think Jeff's got some. They're all being updated real soon. I was assured by Jeff just earlier today that he has that at the top of his list to get done. So just check back if you have some zeros in the rankings, just come back, check it out. But we got those in line for you, and we're ready to get into this draft season.
All right, Brandon.
Yes, you can find me at bjack83 on Twitter, and you can check out my key and diagnose articles on the website, gridironratings.com. Producing a lot of content about second-year players, and I'm going to put some third-year players in there as well. Some guys who has disappointed in their first 2 years, but their outlook has changed. So it's going to be a lot of exciting content out there that I'm going to be writing, and I'm excited. draft is coming up, and before you know it, the mini camps and training camp be coming up. So it's exciting. Looking back at the things we said in articles and how all that comes into fruition. It's going to be very exciting. What happens with these teams and these players compete for jobs.
100%. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in tonight. Thank you to Gary and Brandon for joining me and talking some IDP. You can find me on Twitter at JJ Wenner. Make sure you tune in to the Getting Defensive podcast every week, the Tuesday show with Craig and James and Gary and all the crew. Make sure you're checking out Rider Dynasty, my podcast. It's on the same stream, different channel. That's on Wednesday nights with Don and I and a slew of different guests. And make sure you're checking out our website, gridironratings.com, for everything you need for your fantasy teams. Remember, your path to the title starts with Gridiron Ratings. Have a great night.